Be careful what you wish for. That is what the mainstream media are saying to West Ham fans at the minute. And it's one of those phrases that really irritates me, not just West Ham, when I see it thrown at other clubs as well. Be careful what you wish for. It's like giving an adult a row. It's a lecture for adults. And it's one of those phrases that irritates me in football because I don't get it. I understand what they're saying. I understand they're saying you've never had it so good. If you get this wrong, your club could go backwards. You should just appreciate what you've got. Be happy with what you've got, because change is a risk. You might get worse. Like when we had Sam Allardyce, they told us, be careful what you wish for. Without Allardyce, you might get relegated. Yes, we might. We might go backwards. If we dismiss David Moyes and we pick another manager and get that selection wrong, we might retreat down the table. We might do. But that's why, ironically, you're careful with what you wish for. You make sure you get the next appointment right, because West Ham could get better. And it's just a phrase that really irritates me. Be careful what you wish for. Well, thank you very much for your lecture. Thank you very much for your condescending phrase there. We appreciate that very much. But often I find that phrase becomes null and void when they follow it up with, well, what do you want? Champions League football? Well, all you've done now is just understand that you don't know what West Ham fans want. So end of story. Anyway, but I'd have a little moan about that phrase. I don't like it. Be careful what you wish for. But speaking of wishing, who's in charge of that wish? That's what has worried me and still does. Despite what the rumours are in the last 24 hours, and that's what we're going to cover today, I'm still scared, truth be told. Because yesterday we got told by various outlets such as TalkSport, who use the be careful what you wish for, Daily Mail, Jacob Steinberg, they stated that West Ham were now having second thoughts about giving Moyes a new contract. Talks were on hold and they'll decide towards the end of the season. Good news. It just makes sense. Regardless of form, regardless of everything, it just makes sense. There's no rush. There was never any rush to get this contract done. So I'm pleased the can has been kicked down the road. That's a start. That's good. Step in the right direction. Happy days. But ex-West Ham employee yesterday stated while the club are doing that, Tim Steidten is now looking at possible alternatives. Now this is welcome for me. I wanted to hear this. I wanted to hear that Tim Steidten is partly in charge. He's responsible for this. Now I still have reservations over Tim Steidten recruiting the next manager, either A, being given responsibility, or B, getting it right. And we're going to cover both in this video. I'm going to give my reasons. I'm not saying you have to agree with me. That is fine if you disagree. I'm going to give you my reasons. But it's all going to come back to the same thing. David Sullivan. I do not trust David Sullivan. So what do I wish for? Well, David Sullivan to be not in charge of recruiting a new manager. That is what I am wishing for. Let me make that clear. Because in regards to Tim Steidten, let's start with the ability and then we'll get on to being allowed to recruit the new manager. When Xabi Alonso has been linked to West Ham, those longer term viewers of this channel will know I've never believed it. For 1 second, I've never believed we could get Alonso. He's got the pick of the clubs, essentially. Whether he wants Bayern Munich, whether he wants Liverpool, whether he wants Real Madrid. There's a reason he implemented those three clubs into his contract. When he did that contract with Leverkusen, he put that release clause in there and he picked those three clubs. Yes, it's his former clubs, but also they're three of the best clubs in the world to manage. I have no doubt he will end up at one of them next. He's still got unfinished business with Leverkusen. Really good result for them on Saturday night. I tuned in to watch that one instead of the Nottingham Forest Newcastle game. Thoroughly enjoyed it. Really good game. Really good result for Leverkusen. I find myself rooting for Leverkusen this season a lot, actually. Nothing to do with Scarfman. Nothing to do with Alonso, really. Just, I guess, the underdog. Harry Kane leaves Spurs to go win a trophy. He goes to Bayern Munich, who have won it for the last 10 years, and they might not win it this year. Brilliant. Absolutely fantastic. You just couldn't write it, could you? Loved that. Anyway, when Steidten came in, and it was sort of looking at Leverkusen, we were all looking at Leverkusen, and that's right. That's still, I have no problems with doing that. I was doing that as well, because he's responsible for a lot of the players they had brought in prior to the signings of the likes of Xhaka, Grimaldo, Boniface. Steidten was responsible for a lot of those, for identifying a lot of those players as well. That is, his fingerprints are all over that team. No doubt about that. I'm not questioning that whatsoever. And this is why I'm pleased we've got Tim Steidten. I'm still pleased we've got Tim Steidten. However, the one thing I don't believe is he was responsible for recruiting Xabi Alonso at Bayer Leverkusen. I think there's two people that was responsible for that. I think the CEO of Bayer Leverkusen, don't know his name, the Spanish guy. Alonso's alluded to him before about how he's really good friends with him. And then we've got Simon Wolfes, who was Tim Steiden's boss, essentially. Because Tim Steidten was head of scouting at Bayer Leverkusen until 2022, and then he departed early 2023. Now, there is rumours that he was frozen out at Leverkusen prior to that mutual consent because he had those conversations with Chelsea and he was potentially looking to go to Chelsea to join what Bowley was doing there. He was going to go there and become the main man. Now, those talks are all but confirmed that he had those talks with Chelsea. The rumours are Leverkusen got wind of it and sort of throws Steidten out a little bit before mutually agreeing to terminate that contract in March. Now, sometimes in football things make sense. I think that makes sense. But regardless, Alonso was employed while Tim Steidten was in a senior position as Director of Football at Bayer Leverkusen. But he still had his line manager there, Simon Rolfes. And he's been there for the same time as Tim Steidten, but Alonso speaks about him a lot, and he speaks about Alonso a lot publicly. He speaks about the appointment of Alonso, why he chose Xabi Alonso, why he recruited Xabi Alonso. Alonso speaks about why he went to Leverkusen to work with Simon Rolfes. No, at no point is Xabi Alonso said, I went to Leverkusen because Tim Steidten was the guy that took me there, or he's the guy that's going to get the players in. Alonso hasn't, to my knowledge, publicly spoken about Tim Steidten. So I believe the people responsible for bringing Alonso to Leverkusen is Simon Rolfes and then CEO. Now, that's not to say Tim Steidten didn't have a hand in identifying Xabi Alonso, because regardless of the previous appointments at Leverkusen which didn't work out, this one was, say, left field. It wasn't. It was a gamble. It was a risk. Xabi Alonso prior to Leverkusen was at Real Sociedad B and got relegated. Now, the reason that sounds really bad, but he was using a lot of young players to get promoted in the first place was considered an incredible achievement for them. So to get relegated, they weren't bothered. It was expected. Anything else would have been a miracle. But they liked what Xabi Alonso was doing, the way they were playing football. He had turned down other German clubs such as Gladbach before eventually going to Leverkusen. But it was still a gamble on their part, and it has worked. But I just have reservations over Tim Steidten. I think Tim Steidten, in terms of recruiting players, big, massive tick for me. Yes, please. In terms of identifying players, big tick. Recruiting players, 50-50 on that one. The new manager, I struggle to have confidence he will get it right, and because I see no evidence. I hope he does. I really do hope he does. But while I have no confidence in Tim Steidten getting it right because there's no evidence, I have no confidence in David Sullivan getting it right because there is evidence. And that's the big difference between the two of them. Sullivan historically has shown he's reluctant or won't pay compensation to any manager. We know what you have to have. You have to be Premier League proven in his eyes in order to get the job at West Ham. There's a lot of filters Sullivan puts in place. And his knowledge of managers isn't great. Xabi Alonso, there's no chance David Sullivan would have even identified him in the first choice. But even if someone like Steidten was here, brought Xabi Alonso to David Sullivan and said, look, this is the guy you want. Sullivan's heard of him through his playing days. Would Sullivan gamble on Xabi Alonso just like Simon Rolfes did? I'm unconvinced. I am unconvinced. Far from it. And then, so that's the ability to recruit. I think it's unproven. I am hopeful. It doesn't mean I don't want Tim Steidten involved though. I'll get on to that. I'll summarise at the end. The responsibility, and this is what scares me. I am pleased X has said he's involved because I think X is really good in the know. But I feel torn at the minute. Right now, when I've seen that, I struggle to believe. I want to believe it. I want to believe that he's looking for alternative options. And I think that part might be true. Because looking for alternative options does not mean you're responsible for recruiting the new manager. That means you're responsible for finding managers out there that we could bring to West Ham. Well, do you know what? He did it in January. Not managers, Tim Steidten. He identified Ibrahim Osman. No, I know I keep going back to it, but I think this deal or lack of deal was pivotal. It was pivotal to me because it was a reminder that David Sullivan is top dog at West Ham. David Sullivan is still the one in charge. So it's all very well letting Tim Steidten go and identify new potential managers at West Ham, but who's making the call as to who comes in if we replace David Moyes? And I don't believe that it won't be David Sullivan. I hope it's not David Sullivan. I just struggle to believe it won't be. So it's pleasing. I welcome the new Steidens out there looking for the next manager. And you know what? I hope Noble's involved as well. I genuinely really do. Because like Steidten, like Simon Rolfes, they had playing careers. They then retired and went into the non-management side of the game and grew from there. And I realise I've talked down on Steidten a lot in this video, but all you have to do is go back and watch the videos when we recruited him if you want. I was excited to bring him in because of what he did in terms of player recruitment. But replacing Moyes was always going to be a completely separate conversation. Because like I said about the Osman one, Sullivan reminded us he's top dog. So essentially, in my eyes, Steidten went and identified this player in Osman, got some form of deal going. Like I said, the agent thing was embarrassing on his part, but put it to one side. Because Brighton overcame it just like that. So it was possible to overcome that agent thing, that dispute. And I know Sullivan might have had a PTSD, even though he wasn't here at the time. He's aware of the Carlos Tevez thing. He's aware of how much it cost West Ham. If he's decided he's not going to dabble in something like that, I understand it. But he should have backed Tim Steidten in the January transfer window. In my eyes, he didn't. So Steidten brought him this player he's never heard of, and someone, I don't know about that one. That's expensive for a player that's not done it. No thanks. So what's he going to do if Steidten brings him a new manager that hasn't got any Premier League experience, but has just got relegated with Real Sociedad B? What's Sullivan going to do then? Is he going to go, do you know what, Scarf Man? I trust you. I back you. I'm going to get that manager in. Or is he going to say, actually, no, we can't have him. Where's his Premier League experience? Because whilst I do not trust... Let me reword that, because I need to be careful here, because people will misquote this. Whilst there is no trust from myself and Tim Steidten to recruit the new manager, it's not that I don't trust him, I'm neutral on it. I'm waiting to see, and I hope he gets a chance. I do not trust David Sullivan. There's a big difference between not having the opportunity to build up that trust and having the opportunity to build it up, and there's mistrust there. Who do I want to be responsible for it? Well, not David Sullivan. So that leaves two people as far as I'm concerned. Tim Steidten and Mark Noble. And I hope Noble's involved in the process, just like I hope Steidten's involved in the process. I don't want Moyes to get a new contract, but at the same time, I don't want David Sullivan selecting a new manager. He could be involved in it, sure. I hope he is. I hope there's a committee there and they're all working together and they've all got the exact type of manager in mind. They're all agreeing on which type of manager to go for. But I'm just not confident. Just because I want Moyes gone doesn't mean I trust David Sullivan to get the next appointment right. And the next appointment, I think, is crucial. Because we will be in a good position, regardless of what happens between now and the end of the season. Worst case scenario, like I said, we finish bottom half Premier League table. So what position are we in for the new manager, whoever it might be? We're in the Premier League. We've got players like Paqueta, Kudus, Boyd. Sure, one or two of them might be off. I think Paqueta's off regardless of which manager we bring in. Whether Moyes is here or the new manager is here next season, I think he might be off ski. But there's still 85 million coming in for Scarfman to go spend in the summer transfer window. Scarfman needs to be backed by David Sullivan here. Allow him to go look at potential replacements. This is good news. But what about backing Steidten's potential replacement? What about backing Tim Steidten, saying, that guy, you sure about him? Yeah, brilliant, we'll get him in. Let's have a look at him. Sullivan needs... A leopard doesn't change its spots and all that. Well, David Sullivan, the leopard, needs to change his in this instance, which is what he believes is required in a manager will probably be different as to what Steidten believes we require in a manager. Mark Noble, don't know. We're guessing here. I mean, I'm guessing about everything, haven't I? But my guess from Mark Noble would be potentially a hybrid between Sullivan and Steidten. Would Noble go down the tried and tested route? I'd like to think not. But would he go as exotic as what Tim Steidten might do? Again, possibly not. That's why I'm seeing all these names linked to West Ham at the minute. I'm not paying any attention to them, right? I'm not paying any attention. It doesn't mean I won't give my opinion on them or I don't have an opinion. So when I see Mourinho, oh, no way, thank you. No way, Jose. No way, Jose. Thank you. It doesn't mean I don't have an opinion. I just don't believe it. But all the managers being linked to us are out of work or are going to be out of work. Mourinho out of work. Potter out of work. Francesca will be out of work in the summer. That's already a David Sullivan spot that needs to change. So when Steidten is looking at possible alternatives to David Moyes, it's got to be anything goes. Compensation, don't worry about it, we'll pay it. Whatever it is, we'll pay it. Obviously, there's got to be a limit on that. We're not going to be forking out 20 million to release someone from his contract. But what we can't have is Steidten with one hand tied behind his back looking for a manager. And what we also can't have is David Sullivan allowing him to do it, but then failing to back him when it comes to crunch time, just like I believe he did in January transfer window. Now, quick disclaimer in case this has come across wrong. I am glad we have Tim Steidten. I was buzzing we signed him. I'm still glad we've got him now. I think there were some teething problems in January transfer window. That's going to happen because he doesn't have Simon there anymore. I think he is going to make mistakes as a sporting director without a line manager. His line manager is now David Sullivan. Before at Leverkusen, he had a really good line manager. That's gone now. That guy, gone. So there's going to be teething problems with Tim Steidten. I think we've seen it with the Osman deal. It's something we have to accept. So I'm pleased we've got Steidten. I'm looking forward to seeing what Steidten can do in the summer's transfer window in terms of bringing players in. In terms of the manager, I am nervous. Do I want Steidten in charge? Yes. Why? Because I do not trust David Sullivan and I do not think Leopards changed their spots. Anyway, that's it from me today. If you enjoyed this video somehow, please do drop a like on it, subscribe if you're new to Hammers Chat. I'll catch up with you in a bit.